The Google Pixel 6 Pro. I must say there was so much hype surrounding the new Google flagship for 2021. Google and the Pixel lineup hasn't exactly been the talk of the town during smartphone season, and for many reasons. The most prominent and recognizable one is the hardware. While its competitors like Samsung and Apple made their hardware just as important as their software, Google leaned more on its software, not factoring that most people care about how their phones look primarily before what is inside. But this year, it looks like they've made one final attempt at making a statement by coming up with this: the Google Pixel 6 Pro. A new hardware body and design, a new software with Android 12 and Material U, a new camera setup with the horizontal design that is at the back of the phone, a new fingerprint setup that is also on the display itself, and a new battery setup. Now, these tick all the boxes of the highest end smartphones that we're all accustomed to. But is the Google Pixel 6 Pro worth getting? Well, let's get this party started and find out. Hey guys, my name is KJOS, and if you're new here, thank you for stopping by, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel right before you leave. Now, I have been using the Google Pixel 6 Pro for about a month and a half now, or about a month, I'm not really sure, and this is my real-world, in-depth review of the Pixel 6 Pro, and more or less my pros and cons and everything in between. Now, if you love me and you love videos like this, you should please like this video so it can be discovered by more people that want to make a buying decision. Now, the Pixel 6 Pro ticks almost all the boxes of a great flagship device. Now, when I mean almost, it's just because that there are a few gripes and a few issues that I have with the phone. But first, I'm going to talk about the pros right before the cons, and to be fair, some cons might be in between, but you catch my drift. The body of the Pixel 6 Pro is stellar. It is honestly one of the best looking phones that I have seen in 2021 on a personal level. Now, looking at the back, it is very different from other smartphones that are out there. It has a glass back with an aluminum frame on the sides. It also weighs 210 grams, so it's not the heaviest phone around, but at the same time, you should be careful because the phone is quite slippery. I'm not sure why they made the back glass as opposed to the matte finish that we've been accustomed to over the last couple of years. Also, it gets all kind of marks and smudges, so a skin or a case is your best bet. Google did send me a case with this phone, but let's just say the case has seen better days in its first month, so I recommend buying something else. If we clean the back of this phone and move on, we talk about the camera sensors at the back, which are pretty dope. It has this new horizontal design that I thought was kind of ugly when I first saw it, but after a month or even before a month was up, I thought it was pretty dope. Granted that it catches dust at the top and at the bottom of the phone pretty quickly, still pretty dope all the same. It also doesn't rock on the table if you're into that kind of thing. Since 2021 is the year for reinventing yourself, they added a new camera sensor at the back to accommodate the new hardware. A new 50 megapixel main wide-angle lens, a new 48 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultrawide lens. Now that the back of the phone has gotten so much love, let's talk about the front. The display is tall, probably the first 6.7-inch phone that I have used for this long. I held the Pixel 5a and my word, the height difference is so noticeable, and it just shows how we humans adapt because Lord knows I hate tall phones. But look at me now. Look at me now. The display is glass. Gorilla Glass Victus to be exact, with a hole punch in the middle. Now, it might be fancy and be the toughest glass that is out there, but if you drop this, it will most likely break, so do not pay attention to the fancy marketing. Anyway, the display is great. It's a curved 1440p LTPO AMOLED display with a very smooth 120Hz refresh rate. And finally, the infamous fingerprint scanner. It is slow, sometimes unresponsive, and sometimes very cumbersome. I have tried every method I know prior to making this video, but nothing has improved it. Apparently, there is an Android 12 update that addresses all the issues with the fingerprint scanner, but until that comes around, the fingerprint scanner right now on the Pixel 6 Pro isn't really the best. But what is the best, or one of the best things about the Pixel 6 Pro, is the performance with Android 12. Now let's get one thing out of the way first. Android 12 was a mess when I started using the Pixel 6 Pro. My data or my Wi-Fi would just switch off, my microphone would not work when I'm trying to make calls, and like everybody else, my YouTube studio crashed a lot of the time. Now, this phone was kind of unbearable at the start of when I started using it, but as time went by, an update came through and everything became stable and everything was fixed. Now that is out of the way, the performance on this is really great. It might be first month syndrome, but it is a snappy phone all the same. Spec wise, mine is 128 gig of internal storage and also has 12 gigs of RAM with the all new Google Tensor chip. In my daily use of the Pixel 6 Pro post Android 12 update, I haven't experienced any lags or stutters and apps open very quickly. Again, it might be first month syndrome, but I am curious to see how this will fare next year. Now Android 12 is a joy to have. I love the revamp of Android and its customizations. By now everyone is familiar with Material You and what it can do. From the phone adapting to the wallpaper colors to the new widget system that is within the phone. Also, something I noticed when messing about with the phone, you can't change your icon shapes anymore. Like, I've gone crazy looking for how to change it, but apparently Google has phased that out entirely. But overall, Material You on Android 12 is really good. Google Assistant is also smarter with speech to text and live translations when talking to someone from another language. It is honestly really good. And I'm excited to see the different iterations this will inspire from other manufacturers like Samsung, OnePlus, and many more. There is expectation and there is reality. While the performance on the Pixel 6 Pro is pretty dope, it tends to take a hit on the battery life. So when you look at the tall display and the 120Hz refresh rate, Google considered all those factors and added a 5000 mAh of battery. Again, there's expectation and there's reality. And the reality is the battery life on the Pixel 6 Pro is decent. Let's call it decent. Yeah, decent is the right word to use. On most days, I took it off the charger by 8 AM and killed it before it was even 2 PM. It was pretty lackluster, but after speaking to a couple of people in the tech community, I waited for adaptive battery to take over. And when it did, there was significant improvement. It went from about 4 hours of screen on time to about 6 to 7 hours on some days, which is pretty good. But I called it decent because it is very, very inconsistent. On some days I get 7 hours and other days I get maybe 5. I'm not sure the battery life I'm going to get on any given day, so I can't without a doubt call this the battery champ. Again, this is how I use my phone. It might be definitely different on how you use yours, but if you're a heavy user just like myself, you will definitely kill this before it's evening or before you even get home. Updates might possibly fix this, maybe in December, but that remains to be seen. Now let's talk about the cameras. It has been a staple for Google ever since the first Pixel showed up a couple of years ago, and they have been crowned camera kings ever since then. Granted, the competition has definitely caught up. Google relied a little too much on the software, and it did work for a couple of phones, but at the end of the day, you have to bring your software and your hardware together for it to complement itself, and that is exactly what they have done. They replaced the same sensor since the Pixel 2 with better ones, throwing in a 50 megapixel main wide-angle lens, a new 48 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens with video that shoots up to 4K at 30 and 60 frames per second and also has dual flash. Now looking at the front camera, it is an 11 megapixel camera that shoots at 4K video at 30 frames per second. Real life use of the camera is pretty awesome and probably the easiest to navigate. You do not need to adjust anything, just point and shoot and you will get great images. The wide angle lens is my favorite lens. Apart from it being the main shooter, it lets in the most light, which allows for better dynamic range, more accurate colors and high contrast, and maybe the contrast is a bit too high sometimes, but it's still great all the same. As usual, each image you take, the white balance leans towards the cool side and the warm side, and it's quite customary to the Pixel cameras. The pictures are incredibly clear, but it also depends on the lighting situation around you. HDR Plus comes in clutch majority of the time, and sometimes I feel it's overworking itself and becomes very aggressive by not letting white be white or black stay black. Telephoto Lens here, which is the difference between the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro by the way, is pretty good. It was a staple back with the Pixel 4 XL and they moved that technology to the Pixel 6 Pro. Now images on the 4x zoom are over sharpened and they look quite natural. Dynamic range is also good and the colors are true to life. The Pixel camera can go up to 10 times or even 20 times zoom, but I honestly do not use them regularly. Although it does come in handy when trying to find the numbers on the buses that are far away. The ultra-wide lens is more fun to use on this than the Pixel 5, and I'm not sure exactly why I've had more fun with it, but I have. It captures more light, dynamic range is also a big improvement from the older Pixels, and the colors pop a bit more. At the end of the day, there is a noticeable improvement in the ultra-wide lens. Portrait mode is one of my favorite modes in the world. It could be on a Samsung phone, an iPhone, and even on the Pixel 6 Pro. But it does look better on the 6 Pro than any other phone. The subject to separation mechanics is very good and is a great mode for when you want to blur out your friends out of the frame without being intentional. Now when it comes to the selfie cameras, I'm not really a selfie person, but the ones I took look very similar to the Pixel 5 and the Pixel 5a. A difference here is the wider lens that is a welcome feature. Either way, the pictures here look great, although sometimes it gives me an over-processed smooth face due to some lighting conditions, but when done right, it gets my skin tone very well. Portrait selfies are also great, but I prefer them from a wider angle. And finally, we have night sight. Just like the main wide angle sensor, it is unrivaled. I can confidently say that night sight is the best that is out there. Now when you're taking a picture, it automatically detects when it is needed by the moon shape within, so you don't need to toggle it on manually. Night sight sees a significant improvement, especially from the main camera, and there is so much detail from these pictures. Although sometimes it may look unnatural, they do capture a lot with very little light. Night sight also works with the ultrawide and telephoto camera. So video on the Pixel 6 Pro shoots at 4K at 60 frames per second, and I can tell you it looks really good. It is an improvement from the Pixel 5 and the Pixel 5a. Color accuracy is excellent, dynamic range is also accurate. Moving around with this and stabilization is pretty steady without any faults. If you want to vlog with this, I honestly think you can. This is the selfie video on the Pixel 6 Pro. I think it's pretty good. I have my lighting behind me, which is blue. It might change as days go by or as videos go by. But this is what it looks like. I look good in my fit. But what do you guys think? Do you think the video is pretty good or it's pretty meh? Comment below and let me know. For the price of $899 on the Pixel 6 Pro, this is a worthy phone to buy. Like, I'm not even joking. This is the Android phone to buy without a doubt. It ticks all the boxes of a good smartphone or a great smartphone, from the hardware to the software. Now, if the 6.7-inch display is too big for you, or the $899 price tag is too expensive for you, you can get the cheaper version, which is the Pixel 6, which has a flatter screen, a 90Hz refresh rate, a smaller battery, and no telephoto lens. And because this is Black Friday, you can definitely get it cheaper than what is on the Google Store. I saw somewhere for it to be about $499, so I'll leave a couple of links below if you want to get it. But what do you guys think? Is the Pixel 6 Pro worth getting? Do you already have it and agree or disagree with what I just said? Comment below and let me know. And as usual guys, if you like videos like this and you love me, you should please consider subscribing to the channel and like this video and give it a thumbs up, as this helps me go a long way and open the heavens for the YouTube gods. Anyway, my name is KJOS and I will catch you in the next one where I talk all things tech.